But anyway, so what should we cover otherwise today?
I don't know. I mean, I was
Um,
kind of thinking on the lines of what we're talking about. I was thinking today, um, you know, your kid's ambition, right? Or sort of your ambit, right? How do you temper um, their desires versus the realism of those desires? Is this something? So, for example, let's say your kid says, "I want to be a movie star," or I think actually what's even more commonplace nowadays, and what I might deal with, is my kid saying, "Oh, I want to be a YouTuber." It's a kind of a big, it's the new emerging, like, I want to be a movie star, um, contemporary for the upcoming generation. And it's like, okay, how do I support them, but also temper expectations and make sure that they understand the precariousness of their desires?
well,
Or if you wanted to, and we can talk about this as well, how do you keep your ambitions for your kid out of their life? Right?
those are
You
two
don't
questions.
want your ambitions to overshadow your kid's actual desires.
My ambitions for me or my ambitions for my kid?
Both, I guess.
Because they're two different things.
Those are two
So
different
for,
things.
but then the third thing is the ambition of the kid and what do I do to manage that,
Right.
right?
So
So
I guess, yeah,
there's
it's kind of a three part.
there's three prongs. So um, I don't know. I mean, the first rule, the first rule I think um, of management, and that could be managing. They can be managing a team or people or coworkers or
Sure.
subordinates or kids, spouse for that matter, I suppose. But the first rule of engaging with people is not to step on enthusiasm, right?
Hmm.
So don't be a buzzkill for the sake of being a
Sure.
buzzkill.
Sure.
And so, when someone says, that's a really good question, because when someone says, I think I want to be a YouTuber, is the first response you say, oh, wow, that's going to be hard? Or do you say, that's a great idea? Um, and that will set the tone for everything else. How
Okay.
you
Right.
respond to that first inquiry doesn't say will, but can set the tone. I've been in situations and I in close situations with close people I know, who will say, the first thing is like, how about this? Well, this is going to be that. Like, no, I'm not here. I'm here to partner with you to say this is exciting. I didn't ask you to be a critic, right? And you don't really say that, but it's kind of like, that's not what I wanted to hear. Now I've gotten more vocal when I hear this, particularly with people around me. When one of the first things they say might be something negative, it's like, that's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking you, is this a good idea? Well, yeah, okay, let's focus on that then. Let's focus on the positive.
Right.
So the first thing is, the response has to be, if your kid says, I want to do something, and it might be a pipe dream, it might not. We don't really know, by the way. It depends on their age. If they're
Right.
27 and they say they want to start working to be in the NFL, it might be a little bit late.
Yeah.
But as a child, depending on age, etc., you still want to encourage it. But the point is that, you've got to stave off. I like to stave off from criticism being the first thing. I'm not even sure I've always done that. I've learned that in my later years, but
I don't think
I
you
don't.
have. I don't think you did, but I also don't think that your kids had outlandish dreams, right?
No, they didn't, and I don't think they did. But I don't think I would have. uh, Okay, so you've got a sibling, your youngest sibling, who is well, it's not an outlandish dream. It's actually attainable.
It's attainable, but it became attainable. Well, so I think it became more of a concept as it became more attainable anyway. It wasn't like, I'm going to start fencing and, day one, I'm going to bring it to the Olympics. It was, oh, I'm doing this well and I still have so much more room for growth. This is possible.
I disagree with that factually. I think that was an expectation he put in his head early on. Um, and we have to be very careful, and we continue to be careful about stepping that on that enthusiasm, right? And I say that because you brought up a good example. If they wanted to be make it big in Hollywood, or if you said
Right.
now YouTube. I do this. I actually acknowledge that if they say, how did you process your child pursuing his dream? How do you do that? How do you support that in every sense of the word? Emotionally, physically, certainly financially, and even talking to the rest of his siblings, yourself included. It's like, look, if you guys ever had a dream to say, I think I want to make it big in music, or I want to make it big in Hollywood, I just said, cool, what do we got to do to make that happen? Right. And I wouldn't even ask for a master plan, with the implication of, if you don't have a master plan, you can't make it. It's not my point.
Right.
But I would say, what can I do to help you realize that? That would have been our response. I take that back. I would like to think that would have been my response back then. You guys didn't pose that to us, but I would like to think that would have been at least my response. And so that, okay, what do we take? Because at this point, it's possible. Why would you want to step on enthusiasm, right? Why would you want to, and at some point, yes, you do start to figure out, okay, at some point we have to make some decisions, but that's well into the 20s, I think, at that point, the 20 something and that kind of thing, and how much are they taxing you for it, etc. But if that's what you want to do, then let's go for it. But we would track the disciplines. So things we talked about before on this podcast was the options and opportunities for our kids. That's what we create. If the kid has a direction of how they want to create their own opportunity and options, then we should pursue that. And I would say, is unrealistic. Nothing's unrealistic. It depends on it goes back to the age thing. But the odds might not be great, but and a lot of it's luck, if you ask me. If you ask about maybe acting or music or even a YouTuber, might be luck, might be timing. Who knows? I don't really know.
I mean, I think luck plays a role. I mean, this is a whole tangent in and of itself. But I think if you have the resources to support a successful YouTube channel, let's say you have appropriate editing software and the knowledge to use that editing software, and the appropriate equipment, that'll probably go a longer way than somebody who might have to just record, on their phone or something.
Well, let me give you an example. I'm literally listening to a podcast that was done in 2017. It's one of those vanished or murder, kind of serial kind of thing, right? Podcast, and it's really good. And I'm literally listening to it now. And this happened 2016 and 2017, to 2017. And it was a producer, just kind of a filmmaker. Not sure how successful he was, a young filmmaker, whatever. Right? He sounded young. In I think Atlanta, and he picked up on a person, a teacher who vanished from a small town in Georgia, and he followed that, and he interviewed people, so on and so forth. In the middle of his doing the podcast and into 15 seasons or 14 episodes, after 12 years of nothing they arrested somebody. And so they made the arrest, and they think there's a confession. They're not really sure. That's what we're talking about now. That's what they're talking in the podcast. Now, what I'm getting at is his podcast. I have no idea in 2016 how popular it was. I'm sure it was good. It was well done. But by the time there was an arrest and it was aware that his podcast may have triggered something, or maybe not, but suddenly that skyrocketed, right? That's luck. In some degree, that's luck. Some of it, and that's what I'm talking about, right? There are certain events that might align.
Your
that
right
could be
place, right time, right skill set.
Definitely the skill set and talent.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that's the case. So you don't know with your kid. This is what I'm going back to. When you groom the kid, you've got the production material. You've got them coaches to make sure they have the talent to do it, the idea that they learn from their mistakes, and whatever it is, and creating a YouTube channel and so on and so forth. Right, becoming an influencer. You can do all of that, and maybe it still doesn't pop. So we don't really know. But at least you give them the tools to succeed. You do that with any time your kid. I mean, we generally expect that with education. We've talked about that, about going to school, what are your grades, college direction, so on and so forth. But if the kid has a path of their own, why would you step on that enthusiasm? Foster that within reason, right? I mean, if they're going off the sides and they're not doing it, it's just a bunch of talk, and you throw a lot of money at it, but they're not trying. Okay, you have to think about that. But to answer your question, if it's their ambition, you feed it. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I don't know if there's a limit to what I'm saying. I guess there could be situations, but
I'm sure it's situational. I'm sure investment costs also play a role in, can we afford the things that you need, and how realistic versus your actual, how much effort are you actually putting into it? I think that might be real. I think
the effort's the big part. The financial one, not as much. I mean, I shouldn't say that. You have to have financial ability to do whatever. But we made sacrifices to make that happen with you guys. Okay, all of you. And so and we had a little bit of resources to do that. So, and continue to some degree. But But the point is, it really is, if it's big talk to them, but you find out they don't want to do it. It's like, I want to be the greatest piano player, but you have to beat them to practice piano and get better and improve, and maybe it's plan isn't working.
Right.
So you test those, but I ask mom. I'm one to filter. I'm one to say, here, let's give the opportunity and see what they want to do with it. So that's how I would approach. That's how I would approach a kid's ambition. Is if they came to me and said, this is what I want to be. I want to be the best ball player. I want to do this. I want to go to the Olympics. I want to be in Hollywood. I want to be a music star. I want to whatever. It's like, okay, let's go through the discipline, and there is discipline involved on both sides. So you have to monitor and expect that. But if they're following through with it, you got to keep supporting it within reason at some point, within reason and that kind of thing. Don't go bankrupt doing it. But yeah, that's how I would approach that. And I assume my kids will do that. But that was what I did. That was a plan of mine when I was planning to have kids. That's how I would do it. That's how I was kind of raised with my dad.
And I never felt, I mean, like, obviously there's always, and we talked about this before, there's always this expectation of school, college, go find something to do, whatever it is, just find something. But, and I feel like outside of Evan, it never felt like any of us had these, wild, sort of unrealistic ambitions in a sense.
Well, okay, I don't want to establish that the ambitions are unrealistic by virtue of you having the ambition. Any ambition you would have would not be unrealistic until we just talked about it. You don't really try and that kind of thing. So I'm not going to class it. I'm careful to, I'm a wordsmith, so I want to be careful that ambition is good and it's not unreasonable until it is. But there were no specific ambitions from you kids except for Evan, but there were no specific ambitions is what you're saying.
Right. But I guess on your end then, because I mean, eventually I fell into what I wanted, right? I'm very much in a place where I'm very happy, or at least about to be very happy with the work that I'm going to do. And at the very least, the current work I'm doing uses the field that I study. And that's pretty rare, all things considered, I feel. Most people don't get to use the field they study. And it just, I'm trying to figure out where in my life, right, that kind of fostered. And I'm not saying that you and mom didn't help foster that, but I'm also saying that I didn't outwardly express necessarily, like, I wasn't 13, 14 years old and I was like, hey, like, I want to work in cardiac rehab. Like, that was never a thought of mine.
Well, I've always said I credit your brother just bringing that one up. According to you, it was AJ who suggested doing physical therapy.
Sure, he suggested kinesiology, physical therapy, which was a career path I had never considered ever. It just never kind of clicked. There was never any puzzle pieces that fit together there till he mentioned it. And even then, like, when he mentioned it, I just thought, okay, that's a path I could go down, right? I didn't expect it to click as well as it did.
It doesn't surprise me.
Sure.
In retrospect, maybe and actually at the time you mentioned it, I thought it was a great fit. We don't really know. I think that's a good question insofar as putting the ambitions in the kids. One of the things mom and I talked about, I think it was Saturdays, a couple of days ago, is, I know what it was. It was, if you saw our family text where your brother was book shopping, and it was creating a strategy and buying options for whatever it was, right?
Right.
Right. So you look at this and we both shake our head. It's like, well, okay, AJ is a very technical type. He's pretty intelligent, and we're all intelligent, but in the sense of he likes to see how things work. And as we talked about, he likes to see if he can either improve it or beat it, right? That's his thing, right? So for him, I always figured out what he would do, and he was good at math otherwise and liked to figure things out. I thought, as a parent, you nudge your kids a certain way. So I nudge them towards engineering, right? So going to ambition, and whether it's my ambition or not, it's like, it's really not my ambition. It's what I try to read my kids into. And when I want to keep everything open, at some point you want to funnel them a little bit so they can achieve some minor successes over time. I didn't do well in English, but look at my math score, because we know who's good at math, right? So that kind of thing, right? Or got enthusiasm with math. So I figured engineering might be it. So I would talk about things like, oh, should you consider engineering? And, what do you think we should do? And, in the regard of engineering. And so what did he do? He studied engineering. What did he do as soon as he graduated? Not engineering. He went into, and actually it was before he graduated, he started taking an interest in business and particularly finance, and some complexities in finance that he liked. It started with him, this one might surprise you, in 2015, right before the Apple Watch came out. That's when it first came out. You're going to say, sure, whatever.
Yeah,
but
sure,
the
whatever.
Apple Watch was coming out, and his question to me is, do you think the Apple stock will increase because the Apple Watch is coming out in a few weeks or whatever, a few days? And I explained to him what I thought the market would do. I have a degree in finance, right? Not that I exercise it much, but
Right.
I said, well, I know. He says, well, I think I can. And then we started a conversation. I think I can beat the market. I'm thinking, oh, I don't think you can, because everyone's tried to, and they either lost or won, but they got more lucky than they did anything else. So that started the
Right.
conversation of wanting to conquer finance and that kind of thing. I remember that. I remember where I was. I remember the office I was sitting in when we had this conversation. And ever since then, he's kind of taken to that. To the point now he does foreign exchange trading, and
Yep.
and on the side for fun, he's seeing what he can do with options and other trading and that kind of thing. Because so I don't know in that sense, should I have, quote, steered him into engineering or not? I don't really know. I don't think it matters. I think
Right.
I know for a fact engineering is harder to do than getting a degree in finance. So because I got a degree in finance, and there's no way I could have done engineering. So
But I mean, I guess I haven't talked to AJ about this, but did he like engineering, or was it something that he felt he was just trying to complete and be done?
I think at some point he just thought it was something he just had to complete and get done.
He was just like,
You
I'm
know,
just gonna
the-
get my degree, and then he was gonna pivot after that.
Yeah, it just to seem that the curiosity of building the next Mars rover didn't really resonate with him, right? Kind of thing. Despite that
It's
solving a
probably
problem, trying
all
to
the,
beat something or
the
whatever.
logistical process and the admin work was probably less appealing than the fitting things together and
Yeah.
making it work.
Maybe the teamwork you have to rely on a whole bunch of team members, and for him it's like, that's great, but they're going to slow me down. God, I don't really know. That's a great
Sure.
question. As to, you should ask him that sometime.
Yeah.
But there was something that pulled away from that, and in other words, he didn't see. I don't think he saw himself, being a draftsman at Boeing in Seattle,
Right.
and moving his way up,
Right,
much
right,
like
right,
you didn't
right.
think like you're going to sit at an office, right? So
Right.
maybe that's what it was. But anyway, the answer. But my point there is sometimes we see kind of where the kids are going to go, and we can kind of lean towards that. Danielle, I think, was teaching originally. I think that's what she wanted to do. No, actually, Danielle was originally engineering.
She was engineering originally, right?
Engineering, yeah.
And that's why she was at
then,
Iowa State.
Yeah, she went to Iowa State because they have a strong program. So that's right. So engineering, and she didn't do that. She did history and political science, and now she's in business, and she runs a whatever firm, right? So good for her. She's
But what
happy
you're
doing what she
saying
wants.
is, if my career doesn't pan out, I should just pivot to business. Is
Well,
that how that works?
everyone who fails in being able to execute in a discipline just does business. That's correct. I don't know. So for Danielle it seemed to work, but I don't know. I think there's some ambitions. My real goal, having enjoyed my career pretty much in
Mhm.
what I did, is as mundane as it is, and being an attorney in some ways, but I did it my way and the way I practice law, if I even practice law really. I enjoy what I do, right?
Right.
So I've enjoyed it for 30 years, getting a little burnt out, but I mean, I enjoy what I do. And so what I wanted my kids to be able to do is to do something that made them happy, right? Don't go to a job, don't become a doctor because it makes money, or a lawyer or whatever. I didn't really care what you guys did for a living as long as you enjoyed it. And so
Yeah.
going to your point of you're going to start a job that you feel comfortable, that's your space. It's kind of what I studied, and I'm going to like it because that's the kind of thing I wanted to do. That's the kind of thing I want you to do. That's
Yeah.
what I wanted for Danielle. It seems to work. AJ, he's finding his way. I mean, doing well in the foreign exchange, I suppose, but I mean, he's finding his way. Emma is finding her way. I asked her, why did you get a degree in sports business management? She says, because, which really is like, she likes to run a gym or
Right.
cheerleading or be a coach or whatever. That's what that business, and she says, because I couldn't see myself going to work without yoga pants. So that was her criteria. And she didn't want to sit in an office. In fact, she was offered a job and accepted a job maybe a year ago now that I think about it. I can't remember when. for recruiting in a college, and they said it was, it was remote and that kind of thing. No, right away they switched and said, "No, you have to come in the office." She came in the office and gave her notice and quit. I'm not sitting in a cubicle. I cannot do that. I think she really cannot do it. It's just, she doesn't thrive.
Yeah, sure,
I don't want you guys, yeah, I don't want you guys to be unhappy in what you do. There are going to be moments you don't like the job, you like what you do, but it's not the ideal job you currently have,
right.
which is teaching. Right. So, but you knew that was a stepping stone to move on. So I'm not saying every chapter of your career is always going to be exciting or going to be great, but your overall book is going to be what you write it to be. And it's going to be chapters that you push through it because you had to get to the next chapter.
Right.
That's okay. So, at the end of the day, I want you to say, no, I like to go to work. I like Mondays well enough because there's nothing worse than hating Mondays.
So, yeah, agreed. And I guess that'll pull it back though. We're talking about, nudging your kids' ambition in the right direction. You see their interest, you see their the sort of what they kind of gel with more than others, and you kind of push the resources in that direction, whether or not they know it, from what it seems like. And if, I guess, at a certain point they say, I want to do engineering because of everything that has been available to me, great, you run with it. But I guess you should also not be afraid to pivot off of that in the event it doesn't pan out.
Correct. I mean, at the end of the day, you might find out it's not what they want to do. You've got a cousin.
It's a great hobby,
college,
but not exactly a great.
Yeah.
Great.
There might be something. Maybe for whatever reason, AJ's challenge in engineering, giving that example, it was even too much of a challenge. It wasn't fun. The result of getting the answer correct.
The payoff the payoff isn't what he wanted.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And maybe it's competitive and other people, it was not the space that he can specialize in, because our goal is to being able, if you really like your job, you'll excel. If you excel, it's kind of what you want to do. Sure. You want to excel in what you do for a number of reasons. Some of them selfish, could be financial. Some of it could be ego, a little bit pride, right? But a lot of it is because it's what you like to deliver that. You see the results in the people that they give you the feedback. In your case, it's going to be your patients, right? So if that's what you call them, right? But I don't know what they are.
Yeah, they'll be patients.
Okay, so your patients. So when they come back and say, I really like the way you delivered the training because it sounds like you have a passion for it. I mean, the passion is what made you so good at what you do.
Right.
Right. And then when it comes to things, then good things come to those who do well. And if you do well at it, which if you have a passion for it, you will, and you're above average in what you deliver, then you've got a good path, right? In my world, we have cutbacks. I'm in the mortgage space, that we have cutbacks all the time. So you had to be exceptional in order to be able to be marketable even in the downtimes. So you have to fight for that sometimes. So, which is what we're doing right now. And both Mom and I are still busy because I think one of the reasons is we work very hard at what we do and become better than average of how to deliver and work with clients or employers and stuff, and fellow employees. So we work very hard at that. So you want to be in an environment where you're going to excel, and excelling is easy when it's something you enjoy. Right. So that's kind of the program, if you will, and so far as how you build a career that you feel fulfilled at the same time. I didn't say everyone's going to make millions, maybe not, but it's like, but what I'm getting paid for something I like to do. There's always higher value, right, than sometimes you deserve. You feel like that. It's like, good. It doesn't matter the dollar amount. It's the fact that you come out of it thinking like, I can sustain my family. I always say, as long as you can, you can maintain yourself. You don't have to rely on the public or family dole for someone else to pay up for it, and you don't have the envy of people who have more things than you do, right? Then you chose wisely. You chose wisely. That's exactly what you should do. Who cares how much you make, as long as you're steady and yeah. So to answer your question, that's what we try to do. And yes, you have to pivot if you come off of something that you don't want to do. But I'm okay with that too. It's just, I just don't know what that is, and we don't know until you try.
Yeah.